Life in Solomon's temple was marked by great luxury and complex rituals, reflecting the magnitude of the king and his influence. How did Solomon manage his 700 royal wives and 300 concubines? Every day, these women prepared for the possibility of spending the night with the king. They bathed in perfumed waters, received massages with myrrh and aloe oils, and took care of their hair, which was braided with golden threads. In the palace, the nights were filled with refined rituals, including hypnotic dances, special baths with rare oils, and carefully chosen jewels to enchant. The competition among the women was not limited to pleasure. There was much more behind this coexistence. Solomon's temple was not just a construction, but a grand symbol of power and devotion, built on Mount Moriah in Jerusalem. Its structure shone under the rising sun, with its golden walls reflecting light like a celestial beacon. The magnitude of this building, which consumed immense resources, would be equivalent to billions of dollars today. More than 180,000 men dedicated 7 years to erect this wonder, with materials such as Lebanese cedar and gigantic stones being transported and worked impressively. Phoenician artisans, renowned for their craftsmanship, led the work, carving each detail with precision. The temple had impressive dimensions, 30 meters long, 10 meters wide, and 15 meters high, just in the main sanctuary. But what really stood out was the interior, completely coated in gold, with not a single spot where the precious metal shine was not visible. Cherubs sculpted from olive wood and covered with gold guarded the Holy of Holies, creating an environment of reverence and mystery. The monumental columns, Jachin and Boaz, marked the entrance, and their decorations symbolize the strength and stability of Solomon's kingdom. The most sacred space of the temple, the Holy of Holies, was a cube with 10-meter sides where the Ark of the Covenant was kept. Only the high priest could enter there, and this happened only once a year, on the Day of Atonement. The aroma of incense mixed with the scent of cedar, creating a unique atmosphere. To ensure the continuity of sacred service, Solomon implemented an innovative administrative system. 24 divisions of priests took turns maintaining the temple's operations, ensuring that divine service was never interrupted. Behind the scenes of Solomon's temple, an entire city operated without interruption. Bakers with special skills prepared the showbread in dedicated ovens, following a secret recipe passed down through generations. Perfumers mixed sacred fragrances, whose formula was a closely guarded secret, treated with the same care as the temple's treasures. This atmosphere of mystery and power extended to Solomon's palace, where he controlled supernatural forces with a magical ring and performed secret rituals with his wives and concubines, turning the palace into a center of pleasure and seduction. Solomon's harem was not merely a place of pleasure, but a true center of political power, where alliances with distant kingdoms were forged. With 700 royal wives and 300 concubines, the harem became a symbol of control and strategy. Women of royal blood held superior status, with their own palace and a retinue of servants, musicians, and dancers. Among them, the pharaoh's daughter held a prominent position, living in a palace adorned with hieroglyphs and Egyptian furniture, dressed in the finest linen garments. Each cultural group brought its own traditions, creating a unique multicultural environment in the ancient world. The princesses of Moab introduced exotic perfumes, while the Sidonian women excelled in the art of weaving royal purple fabrics. The harem was a complex society with its own hierarchy. The royal wives occupied luxurious quarters on the upper floors, overlooking fragrant gardens, while the concubines lived on the lower floors, which were also luxurious but on a smaller scale. Each woman had a royal seal that allowed her to conduct business and maintain correspondence with her homeland. The administration of the harem was organized and required a large team of staff: stewards, guards, cooks, musicians, doctors, and midwives. Communication within the harem followed strict rules. Special messengers, usually respected elderly women, coordinated communication between different sections, ensuring that intrigues were minimized. Preparation for a night with the king was a meticulous ritual that began at dawn. The woman chosen for the king's night underwent an elaborate process of purification and beautification. She bathed in 7 special pools, each with specific aromatic oils, such as myrrh, aloes, cassia, and cinnamon. Her personal servants, usually 7, attended to every detail. Her hair was washed with aromatic oils and combed with ivory combs, while her skin was treated with a secret mixture of honey, goat's milk, and essential oils. Her nails were painted with henna, forming symbolic designs. The garments chosen for the night were made of fine fabrics dyed with rare colors extracted from shells and precious minerals. The chosen jewelry held symbolic power and was carefully selected to seduce. The royal chamber's environment was prepared with golden incense burners, spreading special fragrances and creating a sensual atmosphere. Flower petals were scattered on silk sheets, and the lighting from oil lamps added a seductive touch to the ambience. Musicians specializing in love songs played soft melodies, as if inspired by the Song of Songs itself. Before meeting the king, the chosen woman was instructed in the art of love by experienced elders who shared secrets passed down through generations. Every gesture, word, and movement was carefully rehearsed to provide a unique and unforgettable experience. However, despite all the supernatural power Solomon possessed, he had always intuitively known that his dominion over these forces was neither permanent nor guaranteed. He understood that power was a gift from God, something to be used with wisdom and humility. Deep in his heart, Solomon recognized that true power did not lie in absolute control over spirits or demons, but in obedience to God and applying his wisdom for the benefit of his people. Unfortunately, over time, this vision began to fade, and the king became entangled in a complex game of power, seduction, and manipulation. The Ring of Solomon, the magical artifact inscribed with God's sacred name, became a symbol of both great power and great responsibility that the king bore. The ring represented not only his authority over spiritual forces, but also dominion over nature and the elements themselves. Legends claim that, with it, Solomon could command winds to change direction, calm waters, and even make demons bow before him. He used this power to rule wisely and construct Solomon's temple, which would become one of the wonders of the ancient world. Each stone that formed the temple, each cedar beam that upheld the sacred building, was, according to tradition, moved by these supernatural forces. For many, this made Solomon a singular figure, not just a king, but almost a living deity capable of controlling everything around him. However, this power, so grand and fascinating, also brought serious challenges. As Solomon controlled demons and spirits, he came to be viewed as someone above natural and divine laws. His dominion over the supernatural was not without risks. While he used these forces to achieve material goals, he began to drift away from the spiritual paths that had guided his reign at its outset. The great wisdom God had granted him, the foundation of his ascension to the throne, became increasingly obscure by temptations of power and pleasure. His interaction with foreign deities, initially born of diplomatic conciliation policies, gradually morphed into adherence to these pagan religions. The construction of altars to foreign gods around Jerusalem was clear evidence of Solomon's spiritual departure. At first, he did this as a political concession, a way to guarantee peace with surrounding kingdoms. But soon these practices began influencing him spiritually. The people of Israel, who once viewed Solomon as a wise and just leader, began to question his behavior. While Yahweh's temple remained the religious centerpiece of Jerusalem, sanctuaries to foreign gods sprang up around it. Priests and prophets began to warn Solomon about the dangers of idol worship, but their words were ignored or, at best, met with indifference. The king himself, in his pursuit of power, became increasingly seduced by the foreign deities his wives worshipped. By participating in these pagan rituals, Solomon not only compromised his own faith, but also paved the way for the kingdom's moral and spiritual decline. Simultaneously, the use of the ring and his control over spirits began to exact a price. Though he was capable of extraordinary feats, such as constructing magnificent monuments and temples, these material victories did not fill the spiritual void forming in his heart. The demons he controlled started to become harder to command. They, who had once obeyed without question, began to behave more rebelliously, challenging his authority. Solomon began to face unexpected difficulties, both in kingdom affairs and in managing his harem, which was becoming a hotbed of intrigues and power disputes. Additionally, the constant use of supernatural powers to manipulate elements and control spiritual forces also took a toll on his mental and emotional health. Solomon began to feel increasingly isolated, disconnected from his own people, and, worse still, from the divine source of his wisdom. The king, who was once known for his unparalleled wisdom and devotion to God, was now consumed by an incessant pursuit of control and power. Arrogance took hold of his heart, and he began to see himself as the sole solver of the kingdom's problems, straying from the dependence on God that had made him great. This change in Solomon had profound political repercussions. His governance shifted from a model of justice and equity to one driven more by egocentric motives, where power became the main focus. Alliances with other kingdoms, initially based on diplomacy and mutual respect, began to erode under personal interests and the manipulation of relations. The tribes of Israel, once unified under Solomon's leadership, began to divide as the king's policies grew increasingly oppressive and disorganized. Most tragically, perhaps, was the impact on Solomon's children. Despite his vast number of wives and concubines, Solomon failed to provide consistent and stable education for his offspring. The royal children, raised in an environment filled with intrigue and power struggles, never experienced true unity. Rehoboam, the most well-known son, grew up amid constant battles for influence, and his own ascension to the throne was marked not by the wisdom that characterized his father, but by inexperience and inability to handle the political complexities that followed. Solomon thus became a tragic figure, a man who possessed all the power the world could offer, but ultimately paid the price for straying from God's paths. The kingdom of Israel, which he had built with such effort and greatness, began to decline. The wisdom that had made him great now seemed distant and irrelevant. His reign, which was meant to exemplify divine wisdom, became a warning about the dangers of pride, the quest for absolute control, and disconnection from true faith. The story of Solomon, his rise and fall, is one of the most profound and complex in biblical history. It reveals not only the challenges of leading a nation with wisdom, but also the consequences of straying from the true source of wisdom and power, God. Solomon's ring, which symbolizes ability to control the supernatural, became a reminder of human arrogance and the limitations of those who attempt to use spiritual powers for personal gain instead of honoring the Creator. If you believe in God's supernatural power, comment, God's power is greater. Leave your like now and declare, my faith is firm in God. May this action be a symbol of your trust in Him. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell to receive more videos like this.